Hey, and welcome back to the Brewed for Life podcast. What a busy weekend I had this weekend with, we had a Jack and Jill to go to, and then yesterday, as I had talked about on the Instagram page, was the first brew day of this year, and I partnered up with my son's stepdad, and we brewed a New England IPA together. It's the first time that him and I have gotten together to do a beer, and we had talked about doing it, oh God, at least for the last year or so. We've talked about getting together and having a brew day and just kind of hanging out. It was a really, really nice weekend. It was nice to be able to kind of get together and see some of Audrey's family that we don't typically get to see, and it was good to talk to them and catch up and laugh and joke, and obviously, all of it for a good reason, as one of her family members is getting married. So I always think that when it comes to like weddings time, and Audrey and I have talked about this because obviously we're engaged, and we have a lot to try to put together as far as when we want to get married and our whole process and head count and all of that kind of stuff, which can be kind of tedious and annoying and stressful. So that is definitely something that's on our radar for this year to try to get done. But one of the things that I really love about Jack and Jill's, and I don't understand why, people getting married don't do it more often, because it brings together both sides. I feel like it saves a lot of money for the wedding couple, as far as how much money has to be shelled out. And I also I don't really truly understand the necessity to have a bachelor and a bachelorette party that is like a weekend long getaway, and like people go to like Mexico and the Bahamas and Puerto Rico, and all these people get together, and what are we celebrating? What is the actual purpose of all of that? You have made a decision to enter into a marriage with the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. And over the time period that you've been together, you have been a unit. And really the only thing that changes when you get married is now you become a legal standing couple. You've always been a couple the whole time, and you've been doing things that are couple stuff. Like, yes, you go out and you spend time individually with your friends, or you do things with your friends, but the majority of the stuff you do is together as a couple, as a unit. So the idea to me of separating for a period of time to celebrate what? Is it a last hurrah? Like, you're never going to go and be able to hang out with your friends ever again and go and enjoy time together with your friends? You feel like you need to go out with just the girls or just the guys and get away for a week or a weekend or whatever it is and get shit-faced and do all these things. What are we doing there? Like, I've been to bachelor parties, and I fucking, I don't know. I have seen too much shit go on at those things. I've seen strippers. I've seen fights break out between guys at these things because they can't get close enough to the strippers. I've seen guys disappear with the strippers, including the best man and the groom. It's mind-blowing to me that people feel like their life is coming to an end and they have to have this last hurrah of doing this stuff that you haven't been doing the entire time that you've been in the relationship before you got engaged, but you need to do it for one last time? For what? It is the shittiest way to start your marriage, by immediately going out and doing all the things that your soon-to-be spouse wouldn't want you to do, or it would be frowned upon if the roles were reversed. I think that whole idea needs to go away. I am a firm believer in the Jack and Jill stuff because it gives you an opportunity to raise money. It gives you an opportunity to be able to celebrate that part of your life, which is like, we're doing this together. We're going into this marriage as a unit. We're going to raise money together. We're going to celebrate the entire process all the way up until vows are exchanged and now you become a legal unified couple. I don't think it's necessary to do all the other bullshit. I've not seen anything positive happen at those events or anything that doesn't not stay a secret. You know, like a perfect example, which is probably to the extreme, is the movie The Hangover, where these guys go out and they do whatever and they can't remember anything. They don't know what they did. Why? For what? For what? So that you can keep your fucking ongoing secret of the nasty shit you did right before you got married? Think about the concept of that and think about, is that how you want to enter the rest of your life with the person that you're deciding to spend the rest of your life with? I would dare to say that most people would say, that's not for me, but we do it. And it just doesn't make any fucking sense. I will not be doing that. I don't know what we're going to do, but I can 100% guarantee that I do not want a bachelor party. If I have any insight on a bachelorette thing, I would prefer that didn't happen, just because the people that go to those, I think most of them are like, yeah, we can party, we can do this, we can do that. It's just a reason for them to unload and less about what it needs to be about, because you can still sell tickets to the Jack and Jill. You can still sell raffle tickets. You can still do the 50-50. You can still do games. You can still do all these things. And guess what? You're going to hit the same amount of people. Why do you need to exclude people and go away for a weekend? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I will have no part of it. In my two previous situations, one, I did a Jack and Jill. Ironically, Audrey went to that. And with my oldest son's mom, we just went out and played a round of golf and had lunch, and that was it. That was the end of it. I don't feel the need to do all the other stuff, especially now. You know, in this relationship that I'm in, it is the most comfortable I've been in a relationship. It's the most accepting situation I've been in, where, like, you know, she really advocates for me to do things that make me happy and advocates for me to do things that are good for me. You know, like, it gives me an opportunity to work on things that are important to me. And those things, you know, which I think I've talked about in some of these previous episodes, is that I need to work on my short fuse. I need to work on how I say things and how I address things. And I need to work on how I relieve my stress. And being with her, yes, it hasn't been the traditional path to get to where we are, but the longer I am with her, the more content, the happier, the more stress-free, the calmer I become. And I think those are all positive things. I couldn't ask for a better situation than the one, you know, I am in. Yes, we both have our little quirks that irritate the shit out of both of us, but you know what? Like, those are not major things. Those are just nuances that happen when you live with somebody else and you spend a lot of time around somebody else. I think regardless who it is, if it's, you know, somebody you're in a relationship or just a roommate, everybody has their little quirky things, and not everybody is going to be able to handle them, I guess you could say, or, you know, or go through your day without having it irritate you in some capacity. But you live and you learn. And are they that bad? No, because, like I said, I would not, at this point in my life, I would not want to be any place else than where I am. You know, every single day is a great day. Even when we have, you know, things that pop up that add some stressors to the day, there's nobody else that I would want to have by my side, because we have always been able to find a way to come to a common ground and do it together and move forward together as a unit. And that is really what a true partner and a true relationship is about. I look forward to this coming year because we are going to talk about try to start figuring things out for what we're going to do for wedding and when and what we actually want to do and all of that kind of stuff. And neither one of us want to have a big wedding, so I would imagine that there are going to be some people that are upset that they are not invited. We've even talked about destination stuff. I don't really know exactly what we're going to do, but we definitely are floating around some ideas that we both would like to see happen. So hopefully we can get all of that figured out this year, one step at a time and one task at a time. That way we can move forward in agreement and not have to backtrack with, all right, well, we threw this idea out there and this idea and whatever else, and we want to try to make this this process as easy as possible and obviously, like as financially responsible as possible with whatever it is that we decide to do. Now, as far as yesterday and the brew day with Ian's stepdad Brendan, I in previous episodes when I've talked about where I've been as a dad and where I thought my failures were and how he was able to step in and him having two kids of his own and then also being a stepdad for Ian, he was there for Ian at different times and him and I haven't always seen eye to eye with our thought process and with how things should be addressed or whatever, but I will say that at the end of the day and with all of the instances that have happened in the time frame that he has been in Ian's life, where I have struggled and maybe didn't take the best direction, he seemed to have taken the best direction. And when it comes to a situation like this where you have parents that have divorced and they each have their individual new significant others, the ability to focus on the task at hand and be able to have four minds help steer and navigate a child, I think it's beneficial as long as those two parents are able to work together. And I think we have been able to do that. And Ian, he definitely has some of his own nuances. I don't really know if it's just who he is as a person or maybe collectively, maybe we haven't been hard enough on him. But like little things like keeping his room clean and doing his laundry and that kind of stuff, he definitely has challenges on. But I think, largely we all work together on that. So with Brendan and I having talked about doing a beer together and that is one thing that Brendan and I have always had in common is we both have a tremendous love for beer. And we swap beers, we talk about beers, we have talked about doing like a day trip and hitting a couple of different breweries and for us to be able to kind of sit down and enjoy a couple of beers and go through the brew process, which, for those of you who don't know me, Brendan is a phenomenal chef, and he had gotten some accolades and stuff when he was working in a restaurant, and now he works for a smaller business, and he does the same kind of a thing like gourmet meals and soups and sandwiches and that kind of stuff, but he does it on a smaller scale in part of working with a store up in Sharon, Connecticut. He handles all of that like food service stuff for them. And when we were talking yesterday, I had asked him because I was always a huge fan of his food, and he's very, very fucking talented when it comes to cooking and being a chef. And he's a self-taught guy, He's not somebody that's gone to the Culinary Institute or any of those things. He is self-taught. The man has a tremendous palate. And I asked him, I said, do you ever miss sometimes the things about working in a restaurant? Obviously, outside of the things that when you are the head chef, you those are long days because you're there in the morning to make sure orders get written. You're there to make sure that all the prep work for the lunch and dinner rushes is getting moved forward, and then you're there obviously through lunch and dinner until it's time to close up, and then there's all the cleaning and all the other nonsense that has to go into the daily tasks of operating a restaurant. And most restaurants are open 6 days, so you're looking at like 6, 10 to 12-hour work days, and it leaves you next to no time for yourself or family time or any of those kind of things. So it was interesting to hear him say that as much as he enjoyed that, he likes where he is now because of the face-to-face interactions that he has with the customers that are buying these items that he's making at the store. And I never really thought about it that way, because when you take a step back and you think about it, like the chef is in the kitchen and he's preparing all these meals for people, but you really don't have a time during a dinner rush to pop out and just talk to your customers and see what they think about the food and whatever else. And it was interesting to say that he's enjoying that aspect of being in the store. It's something that, like working in retail, I had kind of just taken for granted, I guess. Like people come in and they buy your goods, and then they come back and they tell you like, oh, my roast was great, my steaks were great, or whatever. Like I didn't correlate the fact that somebody of his capacity would not be getting that at the restaurant level, but enjoys getting it at the store level. He was saying that when people come in and they order their holiday meals and all that kind of stuff, like you can see how happy they are and how pleased they were when they come back in, and they're extremely appreciative for everything that they did to prep to help these families get through the holidays. So I thought that was really interesting. And we talked a lot about some of the taboo things, politics a little bit, and some stuff that he had actually sent me some stuff this morning too on some things that I didn't know, which was, like I had seen this stuff on Instagram about when Trump got sworn in, he didn't have his hand on the Bible, and it had something to do with the U.S. being a corporation, and D.C., I guess, back in the 1800s had created the Corporation of the United States or something along those lines. I still have to read the articles. It was something that I hadn't known, and it's not something that's talked about really in history when you're in school. So I thought that it was interesting, and he was saying, yeah, we as a country kind of went into debt to the World Bank because it had something to do with like money and whatever else. And I guess the country itself was not in a good position after the Civil War or somewhere around that time. And we were in bad shape, and we needed some financial backing to kind of get back on our feet. And I didn't realize that from that point on, I guess up until now, where this administration is shaking trees and wants to get back to being a republic and being independent and not reliant and financially obligated to others who we have borrowed money from. And it was very interesting. I think sometimes as citizens, I think we take for granted and believe everything that we're told, and I think that some of the information that we get, different sources have been able to bury some of the facts of kind of where things are at. And it's crazy to me that at a time like this where, like I've talked about before, like everybody is very divided and believes a lot of what they hear, and a lot of people don't do the digging into the information and to really find out what's real, what's not real, what's factual, what's not factual. And I think sometimes we, in the world we live in, where it's so easy to have AI generate information, and there's so many ways to edit and manipulate information that even when you go searching, you still don't really know what's real and what's not real, and what's doctored and what's not. And I think that it makes it tough for people to actually find the truth. They definitely don't make it easy to find the actual documents and stuff to be able to get answers. It's just really, really interesting. And like we had talked about some other things, and in him and I have kind of traveled some similar paths at times, obviously not together at the same time, but have gone through some things the same. And I really didn't know what to expect from the brew day. Like, I know we both enjoy beer, and I always enjoy hanging out, talking to him about beer, and like those times that we do get to spend together. But I don't really have any solid or any, predetermined expectations for what was going to happen other than what normally happens. But it was nice. I really enjoyed the fact that him and I had the time to be able to just discuss and talk about a bunch of different things. I'm happy I did it. I think that Ian's an adult now. He's 19 years old. I think that the relationship that I have at this point with Ian's mom and Brendan, it's one of those things that as an individual and as a dad, I think that I definitely failed at the path to get to where I am. I wish that I had taken the time and instead of pointing fingers and blaming and not being more open and accepting, I think I failed myself, and I think I failed Ian to an extent, because the relationship that I now have with his mom and his stepdad is tremendous. They are as close to us as family members. They are family members, but I mean like family members as in like parents, brothers, sisters. And I really wish I had taken the time to get the relationships with them to where they are now. And I'm disappointed in myself for not doing it. I don't know if I had talked about it previously, but there was a time where Ian he was a freshman in high school, and he was feeling very left out. He was feeling very withdrawn, and a lot of that had to do with the situation, my living situation, and at the time my current wife, and Ian and her not getting along, and him feeling like his voice wasn't heard, and everything was literally everything that as a kid, anything that would help you develop all of this, all these feelings and stuff that push you to a point where now you end up, I don't want to say not caring, but like you are very open to being influenced. And Ian was influenced very heavy by these group of kids that were they were buying vapes from one of the gas stations that was selling them to underage kids. He was smoking a little weed, and when I found out, like, I handled it atrociously. And what happened was his mom and I got into an argument, and I put the blame on them for giving him the freedom to kind of do whatever he wants. Now, like, they grew up in, Ian was living in Litchfield, and his mom and his stepdad were living in Litchfield, and they were living kind of right in the center of town. So Ian really kind of had free reign, just like I did when I was a kid, to be able to kind of go to the park and go do this and go do that. And when Ian was going through this time, not once during my thought process then was anything that was happening in my house was creating this path that Ian had chose to take. And the reality of it was, after I was able to kind of look back and realize what he was going through, which, to be fair, as I had said before, didn't necessarily happen until I had met Audrey, and I was going through the process of trying to prepare myself to get out of this marriage that I wasn't happy in. And Ian, finding out where Ian was at, as I had said previously as well, was that he didn't want to come to the house, and he was crying at his mom's house because he didn't want to come to my house, just because he felt outcast. And me not hearing that until later on, Ian was I think he was a junior by time I had left my ex-wife, and it wasn't until then, so 2 years had gone by from when the incident happened, and then when it clicked to me that the problem wasn't the freedom that he was given. The problem was how I and my household was making him feel. And I made sure that I had to apologize, and the crazy part is that when my dad had passed, Sarah and Brendan, Ian's mom and stepdad, they were some of the first people that were there for us. Like my parents had always had a good relationship with Sarah, and they always had a good relationship with Brendan. And they were the first ones that were there. And his mom and I had a very open discussion that day. And if it wasn't for her in that time, I don't know where that our relationship would be now. Like, we've always been able to work on things together, but like, she was very open and very honest and kind of pushed me to the point where like, no, we need to talk about this. And I'm glad I did, because Ian is way happier. We get along a lot better. Life is better. Like I sometimes look back at some of my decisions of what I have done in the past and what I have said to people and the stance that I have taken at different times. And I look back at them and I say, one, why did you do it at that time? Why did you say the things you did? Why did you do the things you did? And I can't fix all of those things, but what I can do is acknowledge them, and I can make sure that I don't make those mistakes going forward anymore. I'd be lying if I said that it didn't impact me to the point where, like sometimes as I talk about them, you start to get a little bit, emotional, and you can feel yourself just get like, I don't want to say sad, but you get the feeling of like, man, I really fucked up, and I don't want to do those things anymore. I don't want to. I hate it when I think back about some of the things that I have said and I have done, and I hate the way that it makes me feel, because it's regret, it's embarrassment, it's sad. I just, I'm working on trying to be a better person than I was previously. And part of that, like I said, is acknowledging the fact that I had screwed stuff up and have said things that didn't need to be said, or said things that were pretty nasty or whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes things need to be said, but I don't know if it needed to be as nasty and as ruthless as I have said things in my past. So I try to do things a little bit better every single day. And getting back to that conversation with Brendan, having those kind of talks with him and being able to do that, and just him and I talk dad to dad about a bunch of different things, and it made the brew day better. I normally am just out there by myself and getting the brew day done and going through the process, and I'll have a beer or two or whatever while I'm doing it, or have a cigar or whatever, but it's just primarily me out there alone. I was very happy that he was able to come, and that we were able to do that, and that we were able to talk. Just long overdue. I was left, I woke up this morning and I was left with the feeling of like regret and sorrow, because I should have been able to have that, just be able to sit and talk with him about whatever, just person to person, earlier. Sarah and Audrey have been able to, they've gone and had lunch together, and at different times they've been able to have those conversations, but Brendan and I have not. And yesterday was a good starting point for us to be able to kind of do those things and know that we're on the same page, and I think it's going to be fantastic going forward. I mean, it's already good, but I think it's going to be good moving forward. So with that said, I did take a bunch of video and stuff from the Brew Day yesterday. I'm working on getting that stuff edited, and I'll be getting that up. Very excited that the YouTube channel's up. So not only can you get the podcast on Spotify and iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, but you can also listen on YouTube. There's a couple of short videos up on YouTube as well. I'm going to post some clips and stuff of the Brew Day on Instagram, but the extent of the Brew Day is definitely going to be up on YouTube. And the other thing too is this morning I was looking at all the analytics and stuff for the podcast, and one of the things that surprised me was a large portion of you guys listening to the podcast are female, and that surprised me a lot. I'm not disappointed at all. I think that me being the kind of person that I am, like I said, at this point in my life where I'll talk about anything, and I want to try to stay middle of the road because that's where I like to be. Like, I don't want to be at the extremes. I'm trying to be in a place where I am accepting from every vantage point. There's obviously going to be some things that I'm not going to be accepting of, but I try to at least hear the explanation as to why something is the way it is, and at least try to understand it. That's just who I want to be. I want to understand more. I still might not agree with it, but at least I'll understand where it's coming from. And I think the other thing that that this podcast has done is I try to be honest, and if something emotionally hits me, I think that connects with some of you guys, because there's a level of truth, there's a level of honesty, there's a level of real emotion, there's a level of understanding. As much as I love beer and all of those things, and I could really dig into this podcast being like a hardcore guy focused show, I like the fact that more women are listening than men, because I try to explain where I've been, and I try to explain some of the things that have worked for me to be able to change who I am. I always say that Audrey has been a huge component of me changing and me being aware of the things that I do. And I'm open to those things because of, one, who she is, two, how much I value her thoughts and how she feels about stuff. And don't get me wrong, like, that's a work in progress. Because I have been so hard line and so short fused at times, that part of our relationship has gotten better because I am able to tear my walls down. I am able to take the time to listen effectively. I love her so much that I want to make sure that the things that I do when we're communicating are good. That they are things that when we talk about different things, that the communication lines are open. Nobody's in that conversation with a wall up. Nobody is feeling like they're being attacked. It has to be a clear, open conversation with facts, not emotions, and it has helped tremendously. And 9 times out of 10, it hasn't been what she was doing, it's been how I have addressed it. You don't realize what you're saying and how it's being received until you take the time to step back and look at those things. And I think that resonates with a lot of you guys. I'm going to still loop in, some of the beer things and those kind of conversations. And yeah, I'm going to get into some sports and stuff. I won't make it a full episode, but I'm going to tag some of those stuff, some of those things into these episodes. But I just really want to say thank you guys for listening. Thank you for hearing what I'm saying. Thank you for taking the time to listen to these shows and these episodes. Thank you for giving me an outlet to be able to talk about all of this stuff. Therapy helps, but I don't do that as much as maybe as I should. But literally doing this podcast is therapy for me. I don't know what part about it does it, but like I do feel very relaxed and I do feel very willing to want to talk about myself and my challenges and my failures and my successes and thank you guys for allowing me to be able to do that. With that said, as always, I'd love it if you guys could jump on and follow the homebrew page, which is Baines Brewing on Instagram, the Brewed for Life podcast on Instagram also. Jump on, follow the YouTube page. That's the Brewed for Life podcast on there as well. Check out the videos. And earlier we did an episode with Audrey and her Aspired Mama platform. She has since rebranded that. It's now the Mommy Network with 2Ks. So jump on her Instagram and take a look at what she's going on. She's got a lot of good information out there for moms to be able to kind of self-care, self-help, to work on your mental stuff as well as your financial stuff. So please jump on and check that out as well. Again, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys real soon.